What happens when a three-time Stanley Cup champion realizes his championship dreams are slipping away with each passing season? The hockey world is witnessing something extraordinary unfold. A scenario that seemed impossible just months ago, but now carries the weight of genuine possibility. Evgeni Malkin, the Pittsburgh Penguins' legendary center and future Hall of Famer, might actually be donning different colors before this season concludes. And the Montreal Canadiens aren't just casual observers in this unfolding drama. They're positioning themselves as serious players in what could become the most shocking trade of the decade. This isn't another baseless rumor circulating through hockey's gossip networks. Multiple insider sources are confirming that concrete discussions are happening, legitimate pathways exist, and the financial mechanics are surprisingly feasible. The Pittsburgh Penguins are staring into the abyss of their fourth consecutive playoff absence, and for an organization built around the dynamic partnership of Sidney Crosby and Evgeni Malkin, watching April hockey from their couches has become an insufferable reality. Malkin's own words during training camp carried the sting of brutal honesty. "We missed playoffs last 3 years. It's not great." These weren't just casual observations. They represented the frustration of a champion who has scaled hockey's highest peaks, but now finds himself trapped in competitive purgatory. At 37 years old, the Russian superstar isn't simply confronting Father Time, he's wrestling with the terrifying possibility that his remaining NHL seasons might be squandered on a franchise in full rebuilding mode. Pittsburgh's front office faces an agonizing dilemma that tests the very soul of professional sports management. How do you honor legendary players who delivered multiple championships while simultaneously acknowledging that their presence might be preventing necessary organizational evolution? General Manager Kyle Dubas inherited this complicated situation and now faces mounting pressure to make definitive decisions that could reshape the franchise's identity forever. The hockey calendar provides its own deadline pressure. American Thanksgiving traditionally marks the beginning of serious trade season, and league executives expect significant roster movement during this period. What makes Malkin's situation uniquely compelling is his no-movement clause, which grants him absolute veto power over any potential destination. Unlike typical trade scenarios where players become pawns in management chess games, Malkin controls his own destiny completely. The Canadiens' interest in Malkin represents calculated strategic thinking rather than desperate reaching or romantic nostalgia. Montreal has quietly assembled the perfect combination of circumstances that transform them from long-shot dreamers into legitimate contenders for his services. Their approach demonstrates sophisticated understanding of both current market dynamics and future competitive positioning. First, Montreal possesses something that traditional powerhouses lack: salary cap flexibility. While teams like Tampa Bay and Florida find themselves constrained by years of aggressive spending, the Canadiens can navigate the complex mathematics of roster construction with relative ease. When playoff time arrives and teams must operate within the 20-player salary cap structure, Montreal's financial freedom becomes a decisive competitive advantage. Second, the Canadiens maintain asset depth that years of contending have stripped from other franchises. Teams like Florida and Tampa Bay have mortgaged their futures through aggressive deadline acquisitions, leaving their prospect pools depleted. Montreal can offer Pittsburgh the premium future assets that rebuilding organizations crave without compromising their own developmental timeline or competitive window. The Ivan Demidov connection adds fascinating complexity to this potential partnership. Having a young Russian superstar prospect who could benefit enormously from Malkin's mentorship creates narrative depth that transcends typical rental scenarios. This isn't merely about adding veteran presence, it's about cultural bridge building and knowledge transfer that could accelerate Montreal's championship timeline significantly. Malkin's situation differs fundamentally from conventional trade candidates. At 37, he's not pursuing final payday maximization or guaranteed starting role security. He's chasing one more authentic opportunity at Stanley Cup glory, and his recent comments about Brad Marchand's successful Florida transition haven't escaped league attention. We see a story like with Brad Marchand, it's looking good, Malkin observed, referencing the veteran's seamless integration with championship contenders. This acknowledgement suggests mental preparation for finishing his career elsewhere, despite obvious emotional attachment to Pittsburgh. The rental structure actually favors Montreal's position because, unlike long-term acquisitions requiring extensive salary cap manipulation, a Malkin rental allows significant roster upgrading without future mortgage payments. Malkin's playoff credentials cannot be overstated. This is a player who has delivered clutch performances in multiple Stanley Cup runs, scoring crucial goals when championship pressure reaches maximum intensity. For a Montreal organization that hasn't experienced deep playoff success recently, adding that proven championship DNA could prove transformational beyond statistical measurement. If Montreal successfully acquires Malkin, the Eastern Conference landscape would experience seismic disruption. The Canadiens would instantly transform from promising developmental team to legitimate playoff threat, potentially leapfrogging several established franchises in competitive hierarchy. This move would validate Montreal's accelerated timeline philosophy. Rather than patient prospect development over multiple seasons, they would declare immediate championship intentions. The psychological warfare element deserves consideration too. Opposing teams would face entirely different preparation requirements when confronting a Montreal roster featuring Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Ivan Demidov, and Evgeni Malkin. Strategic planning and matchup considerations would require complete recalibration. This acquisition could trigger league-wide movement as teams losing Malkin's sweepstakes pivot toward alternative targets, creating domino effects that reshape multiple rosters before trade deadline arrival. The mere possibility demonstrates how quickly NHL competitive balance can shift when bold organizations make decisive moves. Despite compelling partnership arguments, significant hurdles remain. Malkin's recent performance shows concerning decline patterns. Point production has dropped, and defensive reliability raises questions about whether he can still impact winning at the highest levels. Pittsburgh might resist salary retention, complicating Montreal's financial calculations and potentially pricing them out of contention. The no-movement clause means Malkin must be completely convinced Montreal offers his optimal championship opportunity. Given the Canadiens' youth and inexperience in high-pressure situations, he might prefer established contenders like Tampa Bay or Florida despite their salary cap constraints. Organizational patience represents another critical factor. If Montreal starts slowly or encounters early season struggles, pressure for dramatic moves could force suboptimal decisions. Balancing veteran rental additions with young talent development requires delicate management that not all organizations can maintain successfully. The possibility of Evgeni Malkin joining Montreal represents more than a single transaction. It embodies franchise evolution from patient rebuilding to aggressive competition, signaling belief that their championship window opens immediately rather than in some distant future. Whether this dream materializes depends on numerous variables: Pittsburgh's willingness to trade their icon, Malkin's personal preferences, and Montreal's ability to convince him they're championship ready. But these conversations happening at all demonstrates NHL landscape fluidity and how quickly competitive dynamics can shift. If Kent Hughes and Montreal's front office execute this stunning acquisition, they would instantly elevate from promising upstart to legitimate Stanley Cup contender. The combination of dynamic young talent and proven championship experience could create something magical, the kind of chemistry that defines unforgettable playoff runs and legendary seasons. For Malkin, joining Montreal might represent the perfect career conclusion, helping restore glory to hockey's most storied franchise while mentoring the next generation of superstars. Sometimes the most unlikely partnerships create the most memorable stories, and this potential union has all the ingredients for hockey immortality. What's your take on seeing Malkin in the iconic Bleu Blanc Rouge? Could this be the transformative move that launches Montreal from development mode to championship contention? Share your thoughts below and smash that like button if you're hungry for more insider analysis of the NHL's most captivating storylines.